Okay, let's start with TestNG, and the main motive of learning TestNG is that we can implement test cases and all. We'll start with the basic features and we'll go on to the project and all. So basically we'll see how to run selective test cases, run test cases on multiple browsers, because these are the requirements of the client. Sometimes that client comes and says that, these are 500 test cases, but I just want to run the smoke tests, or you first run the test cases on Chrome and then run the test cases on Mozilla and give me the report. Okay, and then a scaling test case with different configurations, like for example, you have a single test case and you want to scale it up with different configurations. uh, you know this is something like, I cannot explain you in depth about this right now, but as we proceed, you will come to know. Okay, run as per business needs or business modules. Right, this is, I just explained you, right? What happens when a business flow parameters changes? Basically, what happens when the website changes? Okay, your test cases should not be changed in a huge way, or if they are being changed in a huge way, the change should be easy to implement. Okay, that is what the goal is. And managing dependency of the test cases, especially when we will be running the test cases parallelly using Selenium grid and all. So how do you manage test cases which are dependent on each other? Right. So all these things we are going to do in TestNG, and you know basically I've divided it into 4 steps, as I told you yesterday. That is, first of all, we'll be studying about the features of TestNG, then about the Maven configuration. Okay, then we will look at extent reports, which are basically HTML reports, and then we will build a project structure in TestNG in which any particular project can be incorporated. Okay, now let's start with, you just create a new, I'll create a simple Java project right now. Okay, and I'll call it as a TestNG simple project. Okay, now I have to include TestNG in this project. Okay, TestNG comes as a plugin inside your Eclipse. You cannot just directly start using it. Okay, you have to install it as a plugin inside Eclipse. So to install TestNG, just go to Google and type TestNG Eclipse. Right, and you will get this link. Go over here, go to install the plugin section. Fine, and out here you will see, hold on, install update from site. They have a URL over here. Okay, please install the version 7 of TestNG. Okay, if it is stable, if I copy this URL and go to Eclipse and go to help and install new software, this option over here. Okay, and paste this URL. In some time it will fetch the data. And hit the enter button after pasting the URL. Right, it will fetch the library data for TestNG. Sometimes the library is down as well. I think it is down right now, so it's not fetching it directly. If you open this URL, yeah, it came up, TestNG. Okay, it is the version 7.3 right now on this URL. I don't want 7.3, I want 7.0, because 7.0 is quite stable. Fine, so I will just go and go to this URL which I copied, open this URL and search for the version 7.0. This is the one. Okay, click on it and then copy the URL. Basically in front of this URL you can mention the version, and that particular version 7.0 will come up. In my PC it is already installed. You click on this checkbox, click on next, and it will get installed. Maybe you get some kind of error in between, just ignore that. Your Eclipse will restart. Fine, once Eclipse restarts, you go to Window, Show View, Other, and under Java you will be able to see TestNG. If you see TestNG, That means TestNG has been successfully installed. Fine. So once TestNG is installed, you can start building test cases and all different things. Okay. Now in the source folder in this project, I'm going to build a new class, right? And or a new package. Test cases. Look, I'll come to Maven in some time. I'll tell you about Maven as well and what is the difference. Okay. I'm coming over to Maven in some time. Right. Now this is a test cases package. Now if you observe the things which I had told you, that we will be uh, talking about TestNG and how TestNG helps in the project, installing TestNG, building test cases, and also these are the basic. Step 1, this is the basic feature of TestNG. These are the basic commands of TestNG, okay, which I'm going to talk about right now. First of all, how exactly TestNG will help us? Okay, look, when you have a project, fine, suppose just a minute, if I am having a project, just a minute, if I am having a project and in that project I have to implement multiple test cases. Okay, this is my test case 1, test case 2, and so on so forth, 3 4 5 different test cases. So I might want to serially run the test cases, or I want to parallelly run the test cases. Okay, apart from that, I would want that when the test cases are being executed, the data for those test cases should be coming up from some external file like an Excel file or a JSON file, or any other file. The data should be coming up from that particular file. Okay, along with the data, I would want that, you know, um, the reports should be generated. Proper reports, HTML reports, having screenshots of the errors, having logs that what happened at every time, they should be generated. Okay, then apart from that, you would want to integrate this with Selenium Grid for parallel execution, or with Jenkins, GitHub. Okay, so these are just, small requirements or very basic requirements which every project has. So if you talk about Selenium, when we have studied Selenium, Selenium has just got commands which will interact with the browser. Okay, so to collaborate all these things, we have a centralized controller, and that's what we are studying right now, TestNG. Okay, TestNG will read the data, it will call the test cases serially or parallelly and pass over the data to the test cases. It will help you generate reports. Okay, it will help you integrate Grid, Jenkins, GitHub, everything. So it's like a centralized controller. People also use other controllers. These are like, you say, JUnit, or even BDD frameworks like Cucumber, BDD and all. Okay, so these are controllers, and this is very important to learn. Selenium as a tool will only interact with the browsers. Okay, the Selenium commands will be there in the test cases. Okay, so we'll study TestNG, we'll study data management, we'll study report management, and that's what my goal is right now. As I told you, we will first talk about TestNG, and then we will go and talk about Maven configuration, and then report generation as well, and then the project structure, how to build the structure. Okay, so I hope this was a good overview. Fine, now let's start off with the actual work. Fine, over here under the source folder I have made the test cases package, and I have my TestNG installed. So I'm going to make a very basic test. Fine. Suppose I make a test case, book hotel test. Okay. In TestNG, you don't have any main function. You just have a class, and inside it you have got test annotations. Suppose this class is supposed to have test cases for booking a hotel, right? So I'll write like this: @test public void select hotel. So this @test will actually represent that this function is a test case. There is no main function. You move the mouse over this and you add the TestNG library, and you will see that TestNG is added as a library under the project. Okay, like Java is a library, TestNG is also library. Basically it's got some jars, and you import TestNG from org.testng.annotations. This @test class has to be imported. This is known as an annotation. Okay, inside this test I'll write over here selecting the hotel. So basically inside this test we write the Selenium commands. Okay, and if you want to run this test case, you can right click on this Java file, select the option run as TestNG test. So without the main function, this will simply execute, and in the console it will give you a proper output that total test runs are 1, failures are 0, and skips are 0. And under the results of running the test, it's going to tell you that fine, this is the select hotel test case. Okay, and it has passed. In the console it will also print what I had printed, selecting the hotel. Okay, so basically you make test cases like this. So I can add test cases. I can write over here @test public void make payment. Fine, and inside it I will write over here paying with credit card, and then @test public void verify booking. So these become my 3 test cases. Okay, verifying the booking. Okay, now if I just run them from this, once you run as TestNG test, you can also run this from the run button, and it will say that total test runs are 3, passes are 3. Okay, and it will give you the results over here as well in this section in diagrammatic form. Fine. Now the problem is, if you observe carefully, it is printing paying with credit card first, then selecting hotel, then verifying hotel. I was expecting the 3 test cases to execute from top to bottom order. Sorry, but it is executing make payment first. Alright, it is executing the make payment test first. This one. Look, never think that the order of execution of the test cases will be from the top to bottom side. Never. It's not going to happen like that. Okay, TestNG has got its own order in which it executes the test cases. Right. Now you can alter that order. That you can do. You can write over here that priority equals to 1, that this test should have the first priority. Then you can write for the second one, you can write priority equals to 2, like this. You can alter the priority of the test cases. Alright, but this is not actually the right way to do it. You see that selecting the hotel, paying with card, and verifying the booking. Right, the priority is correct, but later on you will realize that This is not the right way to do it. Fine. We can do it in different ways as well, because sometimes you know what happens, as per the client requirements we have to change the priority of the test cases and all. So what happens is that you go and open the Java files and change the priorities over here. So it becomes a little tough that way. Okay, as a beginner it is fine, but practically when you have huge number of test cases, then you want to change the priorities of those test cases, it becomes a little tough. Okay, but we'll see a solution for that as well. Fine. Now this is the book hotel test. Okay. Now if you refresh this project, you will observe that a folder named as test output is generated. In this folder, you will have index.html file. Right, you copy it and you paste it over here, and you see that there are three functions: make hotel, select hotel, verify hotel. This is the HTML report which is automatically generated. Okay, this HTML report is automatically generated when you execute the test cases. But it is not a very good report. This is the default HTML report. It is not a very good report, appealing report which we can actually present to the client and all. Okay, so we don't rely on these reports. We will rely on better reports. These are known as those are known as extent reports. We'll talk about that. Okay, so this way you build simple test cases in TestNG and you prioritize them. Right. Now how will you actually go and report errors and all? Okay, how will you pass these? By default the test cases they pass. Okay, what if I have to fail the test cases and all? Okay, so for that you will have to learn about, I'll create a new class, learn about validations. Okay, so I'll just create a new class, validations example. Look, what is TestNG? TestNG is basically, or what is testing rather? Okay, testing is basically you have some data, you have some expected data, you have some actual data. Okay, you have to compare the actual with the expected one. That's what we do when we manually test as well. We have certain set of expected data and we compare the actual with the expected. Right, so I'll just call this test as say sample validation. Now similarly in TestNG also we have suppose we have to compare the title of a web page. So we will have some expected title. The expected title you might store in some properties file or a Excel file, in some external file. This is your data, your own data, and you will get some actual data. Say I am going to a website, I am getting the title of the website. Okay, actual title of the website. Alright, this will be coming from driver.getTitle command in Selenium. Okay, now if both of them are not matching, you have to actually fail the test. So for that we use the class known as assert. There is an internal class in Selenium, sorry, in TestNG. Okay, so out here we write assert equals. Okay, assert equals between, and you have to pass over the actual data first and then the expected data. Okay, over here you first have to pass the actual one and then the expected one. Okay, you have to pass it this way, and if you run it, it's going to run normally. Passes are 1 because both of them are equal. If I make one of them different, I make expect actual title different, and if I run it, you will see that the test is going to fail. And in the results, you will see, if you click over here, it will say expected ABC but was found ABCX. So expected was different than the actual. Fine. Now assert equals will assert the titles of the web pages. There is one more assert command. Okay, now first of all, you know what, if I print over here A and if I print over here B, and if both of them are matching, alright, and if I am running the program, in the output you will see both A and B coming, right? However, if both of them are different, and if I run this code, you will see that it prints assertion error and only A is printed, B is not printed. If an assertion fails on fail, the program will stop. It won't execute. This is a problem because sometimes, you know, the failures are not so strict. Okay, the failures are, you know, they are soft failures. Like for example, title of a web page is not matching. Maybe you can move further. You don't want to stop with the flow. Okay, so what we do in this case is that we use soft assertions. I will talk about that in some time. Alright, now I'll comment this line. There is one more form of assert command. It is assert dot assert true. Assert true takes in a condition and a message. For example, I'll write over here 5 greater than 1, and this message is basically your error message, whatever custom error message you want to write. Now it will be a little tricky, it will be a little confusing that what this command is doing. I'll explain you in execution. 5 greater than 1 will actually evaluate to true. Okay, because obviously 5 is greater than 1. So when you run this, so this will run fine. There is no failure. So assert true function wants that whatever condition you give over here, that condition should evaluate to true. If it is evaluating to false, then the error message will be thrown and you can write anything. If I write 5 greater than 11, then 5 greater than 11 is false. And if I run this code, this assertion will fail. Okay, and you will get error message. Whatever error message you write over here will be written in the reports. Now when do we use this kind of an assertion? Obviously if this assertion fails, then also on fail the program will stop. But where do you use this kind of assertion? Remember, I had talked about a function is element present. The is element present function used to take the XPath of the element and used to tell that whether the element is present on the web page or not. If this function returns you false, you can throw an error message that say element not found. Something like that. Okay, so is element present function I'm not implementing right now. If it returns you false, that element is not found, you can throw an error message like this in TestNG. Okay. Okay, now these two assertions are done. There is another form of assertion. Sometimes you are very sure that the test has failed. Maybe you get a 404 error or any 500 error. Okay, or maybe you are sure that you had to you had to be logged in inside the website, but you suddenly got logged out, and you come to know through the script that fine, I am not logged in. So you have to directly fail the test case without any conditions. Fine. So you simply write assert dot fail command. This will simply fail the test case. Okay, with no conditions. You can give some message over here. This can be your failure message, like I can say that 404 error. Okay, so when you run this, it will simply fail the test case, and 404 error will be reported in the reports as well, right? But the problem is with assertions, the program stops. Okay, if I am running and if this assertion over here, suppose, is not a very critical assertion, it's not a very critical comparison, then the problem which I will face is that the program will just stop if this thing fails. We don't want to stop the execution at times. We want the test to continue, and maybe we want to report multiple failures inside a test case. Okay, so in that case, we don't use this assert, we use soft assert. Alright, I'll show you. I'll show you with an example. I'll create a new class known as soft assert example. Okay, now I'll write over here at the rate test public void soft assert example. Import the test annotation. Right, now what do you do in soft assert example? Well, it's actually pretty simple. Soft assert. Okay, there is a class known as soft assert. You create an object of that class. It's there in TestNG. Okay, and suppose you are executing your code. You can write soft assert dot same commands. There were basically three major functions I talked about in assertions: assert equals, assert true, and fail. Okay, so these three will be there in soft assert as well. Alright, assert equals will compare some actual value with some expected value. This comparison is of course going to pass because both of them are equal. But if I am comparing ABC with XYZ, this comparison is going to fail. And if I compare ABC to ABC itself, this is going to pass. So I have to report one failure over here. Okay, or if I compare ABC to ABC1, this is going to fail. So this should report two failures. Moreover, I can also write soft assert dot assert true, some condition, right, this may be 5 greater than 1, and some error message. No, Java is case sensitive. Okay. If I put x small over here, then this is going to fail. Okay, Java is case sensitive language. Upper cases and lower cases, they matter. Okay. Yeah, I will tell you, sometimes the comparison has to be done between two arrays or two array lists or two hash maps. Okay, I will come over to that. This assert equals function has got different forms in which you can compare array lists, you can compare maps, you can compare arrays, you can compare different things. Okay, right now, to just start with, I am just using string. Okay, but you can compare different objects and data types as well. Okay, now as I told you, this is going to fail because 5 is not greater than 11, so I should be reporting 3 failures, right? And I'll just put 2 more lines for your clarity. 15 greater than 11, this is going to pass, and simply soft assert dot directly fail the test case. That is also possible. Okay, 404 error, suppose. So this should be reporting, soft assert can report multiple failures. 1, 2, 3 and 4 failures should be reported if I execute it. When I run this, it says that total runs are 1, there is no failure at all. Everything passes. This is because it's very important in soft assert to write a simple command in the end, soft assert dot assert all. If you are not writing this command, okay, if you are not writing this command, then you know what will happen? This will happen, what we saw right now. Nothing is going to display in the results. Okay, right, failures will not come up. If I run it now, this is one of the major problems. A lot of people do this mistake. That's why I'm emphasizing on this. Okay, you see that following assertions failed. So these assertions, they actually failed. Okay, and you get all the 3 errors, 4 errors over here. Expected error message did not, and 404 error. So all the 4 errors got reported over here, and see out here as well, it is printing them. Right. So this way you can report multiple failures, and I find soft assertions to be way better than the hard assertions, because even if suppose I get a critical error in between, okay, I suppose this error was a critical error, I know that this error is a critical error, I can simply report this error over here, and in that case I can give a conditional statement that fine, if this thing has failed, then soft assert dot assert all, fire this command. So this command will actually stop the flow over here, but it will actually report all the failures which have happened before this particular critical failure. If I just run this code, it will just report, you will see that 3 failures, not the 4th one, because it stopped in between. So if I have some critical failure, I can fail the test case with the help of soft assert as well and stop the flow of execution. Fine, we will do it practically, we will see this thing. Okay, so basically these are assertions and you can use them in the test cases. Right, now for example, this is book hotel test, and these are the 3 test cases. Okay, now suppose the first test case it fails. I write over here assert dot fail with some message that is say could not find hotel. And if I just run this, you will see that it prints failure, could not find the hotel. So out of these three test cases, the first one fails. But practically speaking, if you are not able to select the hotel, how can you make a payment and how can you verify the booking? Other two tests are passing. If the first test itself is failing and these two tests are dependent on the first test, okay, how can you execute both of them? So over here dependency of the test cases they come up. Okay, so till now I just taught you how to build simple test cases, how to prioritize the test cases, how to use validations. Okay, that is assertions. Assertions are of two types. One are simple assertions, one are soft assertions. Okay, and if I am using assertions between dependent test cases and one of the test cases it is failing, then the other two test cases should not be executed. In that case, you can add the dependency over here. You can write over here, this thing depends on methods, and you can give the test name select hotel, that this test case is dependent on select hotel, output of select hotel. And you can mention over here that verify booking is dependent on both make payment as well as select hotel. Okay, so now if I run this, you will see that this test will execute, but the other two test cases will simply skip. Yellow sign means that both of them are skipping. Okay, right. So this is what we wanted. If you have to deliberately skip a function, sometimes, okay, you have to skip a test case. Right, suppose I don't want to execute this test case, verify booking. Alright, so in that case, you simply write inside this test case, throw new skip exception, skipping the test because of some XYZ reason. So if you use skip exception, obviously the other lines will give you an error. Hold on. So this test case would be skipped. So when you run this, just a minute, I'll comment this. When you run this, you will see that both of these two execute, but verify booking is skipping because of some XYZ reason. Okay, so I hope you got my point. Skipping the test because of some reason. Now this is fine, this is good, but if I have to skip some test cases, do I have to simply go inside the test cases and write this particular line, copy paste and change my code? We don't do like this. Okay, we generally have a flag equals to true or false. Okay, the value of this flag is read from some file like Excel file. We keep, I'm sorry, okay, sorry, we actually read the value of this flag from some Excel file. We keep the information in the Excel file, that fine, select hotel has to be executed, make payment has to be executed, verify booking has to be skipped. So we keep the flag in some file. and based on that particular flag, if the flag is true or false, we skip the test case in the first line itself. We keep this line in every test. This is the flag for verify booking. Okay, we keep this kind of a flag for every test case. The second flag can be for a make payment test. This should not be skipped. Suppose I keep both of them to false, and a flag for select hotel. Okay, something like this. So we keep a flag. We later on we will read the value of this flag from some Excel file. So if I keep all of these three to false, and if I run them, then all the three tests will execute. If I make the flag for select hotel to true, then select hotel will be skipped, and make payment and verify booking have also skipped. This is because although their flag was false, they were dependent on the select hotel test. Okay, right. So if select hotel skips, then by default both of them have to skip. The control never enters them itself. Okay, TestNG ignores those automatically after reading. That depends on the methods section. I hope you got my point over here. If anybody has any questions, you can feel free to ask me. Okay, so this is basically, let me check the topics because it also goes out of my mind. I hope I'm not missing anything. Yeah, this is about the dependency of the test cases, how to use soft assertions and all. Okay, now there is something known as test context. This is also a very important thing in TestNG. I'll keep all the flags to false that I don't have to skip them. Now suppose I'm selecting a hotel, and after selecting the hotel I am making the payment. After making a payment, I generate a booking ID. Okay, and after selecting a hotel, right, I want to store the hotel name. Okay, the hotel name will be used inside the make payment function, and the booking ID as well as hotel name, both these parameters will be required in verification of the booking. Basically what I am trying to say, output generated by one test has to be used as an input inside another test. Okay, this test case, selection of a hotel, will go and select maybe the most cheapest hotel. Okay, now you would want the hotel name in the make payment as well as the verify booking section. And when you make the payment, you generate a booking ID which will obviously be needed in the verify booking function. So how do you pass parameters between the test? For that, TestNG gives us a very good feature known as the context. There is an interface known as test context in TestNG. You pass the object reference of test context in each of these functions. Context is something which is common for all the test cases. Okay, in context you can set values in one test and get values in the other. I can write over here, suppose context dot set attribute. We can set some attribute in the context. I can keep the attribute as hotel name and the value to maybe something like city hotel, right? And when you are making the payment and generating a booking ID, you can write over here context dot set attribute. In the name section or in the booking ID section, you can set booking ID, and I will just give it some dummy number. So in the context, you can set some attributes. I am setting the attribute hotel name over here. I can retrieve that attribute over here. I can write system.out.println paying with credit card for hotel context dot get attribute. Okay, context dot get attribute, you can give the same attribute hotel name. So if I run this, when the second test case runs, it says that paying with credit card for hotel city hotel. So this city hotel is printed from the context. One test case has set an attribute in the context, other test case has retrieved. Verifying the booking, I can write verifying the booking for hotel, and I can write context.get attribute hotel and booking ID, and I can write context.get attribute the booking ID which I had set. Okay, so in this test case I have set a booking ID which through iTest context I am retrieving in the end, and I am also retrieving the hotel name over here. So if I run this, so it's pretty simple. Okay, over here it says verifying the booking for city hotel and booking ID is this. So you first select the hotel and you generate a hotel name and you pay with the credit card for the hotel. You get this particular name from this test, and you get both the names in the end from both the other tests. Okay, right. Now this was about context, but I cannot just share the context with other test cases. Okay, like this was simple validation test case. It can also have a context, but it will have its own context, not the context of the other Java file. If you want to share the context between different Java files, there is also a way. I will tell you about that. Okay, so right now just focus on single Java file and sharing the context in the test cases in single Java file. Look, I can have multiple tests in a single Java file, or I can have a different Java file also with a different test method. When do we use a single Java file with different test methods? Generally when these tests are dependent on each other, then we do it. Or we do it in many other circumstances as well. It all depends on the kind of project you are having, that how many Java files you have to make, how many functions or the test methods you have to make inside each Java file. These decisions are the major and the critical decisions. Okay, and the factors with which you make these decisions, they vary from project to project. Okay, they vary on the factors like how flexible your test cases have to be. Okay, and tomorrow if the client requirement it changes, right, then how flexibly you can make the change. For example, in this particular implementation, if the client comes and tells you that fine, for making the payment I have got 5 particular methods. I can pay via debit card, credit card, Google Pay, or some other UPI payment. So you just don't have one payment method, you have different payment methods. and I want to run this whole scenario for all the 5 types of payment methods. Then you have implemented with the credit card only, and you want that this flow should execute first with credit card, then this flow should again execute for maybe Google Pay, and then this should again execute for maybe net banking method of payment. So then you will face a problem that how should I run this, because these two tests are just going to run as it is, but this test is going to change the credit card method. And how do I change the method inside this test case every time without stopping the script? I simply have to run the script once, and this whole book hotel test should execute 5 times. Total 15 tests will be executed, 15 at the rate test functions. Okay, and this function will execute differently every time. So how do I incorporate that change? Now problem comes over here. Okay, so we will cater to this as well once we study. That's what I told you. Once we study the TestNG features and we start building a project, in this section we are going to actually study these dependencies and how you can make flexible test cases and all. So right now the focus is to understand the concepts of TestNG. Okay, now TestNG has also got annotations, other annotations. This is just one annotation at the rate test. Okay, there are other annotations like you have an annotation known as at the rate before test. You can write over here public void before test, print sorry, I'll print this before test over here, and another annotation like after test. As the name suggests, you would be able to easily guess these are the functions which will run before and after executing the test cases. Fine. You import this, and when you run this code, you see before test and after test are executed before and after executing all the test cases. Maybe in before test you can open the browser. Okay, or you have to maybe get some data. You can get some test data over here if you want, right? And in after test maybe you can close the browser. So in before test I decide which particular browser I have to open. I open that browser with the configurations and I execute all the 3 tests, and then in after test I close the browser, right? So there are other annotations as well. I'll talk about that. I'll talk about that in the next class. Fine, I hope this is more than enough. Okay, so we talked about annotations, we talked about validations, we talked about soft assertions, hard assertions, and we talked about dependency of the test cases, how you can pass data between the test cases, okay, how you can make test cases dependent on each other in a single file. Alright, so there are different things we talked about.